Greetings, Earthlings! Welcome back to 7th Street. My name is Calvin McCarthy, and clearly, I like doing these videos. I like just speaking off the cuff and not feeling like I have any pressure on myself to really, even give correct information. I kind of just like talking about these movies, and how could I give good information when I just had 2 beers? Anyway, so just kind of moving along through my collection. We started out with kind of like Holy Grail stuff, and then kind of moving on to big boxes, more like obviously collectible VHS tapes, and some of the controversy that kind of surrounds that. And now I thought it would be interesting to take a look at a VHS distribution company that is not sought after, really. Even though I feel like it really kind of fits the criteria for the type of VHS distribution company that would become popular. But for whatever reason, they're not. And it's probably for the titles. And I mean, there's probably a lot of different reasons, and people should discuss in the comments below. But that's something that's always sort of baffled me a little bit. Because with VHS tapes, it truly is a dead media. There's no more of them being made, So all of them are somewhat rare and collectible. I mean, every year that goes by, I think, more and more of these are just completely lost to the sands of time. More and more of them end up in a landfill somewhere. So, I get that certain labels are more collectible for one reason or another than other ones, but it is funny when you see certain companies get almost no attention. And one of the ones that I want to talk about today is one of my favorites, and that is GoodTimes Home Video. It's interesting to me. I can remember going to a VHS swap a few years ago and picking up some GoodTimes titles and telling one of the other VHS collectors, I really like Good Time titles. And him looking at me like I was crazy. Like he somehow had the moral high ground over me. But, as I've said before, a lot of the stuff in my collection is just stuff that I thought was cool. And there's a big nostalgia factor for me when it comes to collecting. And I grew up with a lot of Good Time tapes. I mean, obviously, the first one that I pulled out here, which is Fantastic Dinosaurs of the Movies. And this is a compilation VHS tape that's really it's mostly monster movie trailers and dinosaur movie trailers. My dad, when I was a kid, worked at OMSI. And those of you who are not in the Pacific Northwest, OMSI is the Oregon Museum of Industry and Science. And he worked there, and they did dinosaur exhibits, and I don't know, they just got a bunch of these tapes. I don't know why, but he ended up bringing them home, and some of them were educational tapes. Some of them were like movie compilations, and some of them were actual just like 50s to 80s dinosaur movies. The only reason I say 80s is because specifically Planet of the Dinosaurs was one of the tapes that he brought home. So that it was like a really influential, those were all really influential movies on me when I was super young. Same thing with, anything Godzilla was really big for me when I was young, and Godzilla versus the Sea Monster got a Good Times release. So for me, it's really nostalgic to have Good Time tapes, and I also think that there are certain things about that company that kind of lend itself to VHS collecting. I feel like, a lot of times what makes a really interesting tape to those of us that collect are just like weird covers, like newly commissioned artwork by the company, by some random artist for the VHS tape. A lot of times it's like the cover, the artwork itself that kind of makes them collectible. And I feel like Good Time Video, home video, had really good covers. I mean, like the one I showed earlier. I think that this is a great VHS cover for Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. It's actually pretty well done compared to some of the other stuff that you see sometimes. And I think that what makes certain tapes collectible is bad artwork too. But yeah, I mean, I think especially like, this Good Time release of Carnival of Souls. That artwork is, I mean, it's good and bad, That's one of the things that always cracks me up a little bit about, like, VHS artwork, especially from, like, these more budget companies, is the fact that, like, that was someone's final draft. like somebody said, yeah, dude, let's put that on a tape and put it in stores and try to make money off of it. And that, there's something great about that. And I think that that's kind of what one of the big factors that make a VHS tape really cool. Good Time Home Video started in 1988, I think. They're a budget line, so I'm pretty sure that for the first few years, or at least first year, it was mostly public domain titles like Carnival of Souls and Phantom from Space. I love this one. And the funny thing about Good Time Home Video is their logo is always that rainbow. They always have this like rainbow look to it, which is like an odd choice for a company that, yeah, they did a lot of different stuff. They actually distributed a lot of cartoons at one point, but they would do a lot of sci-fi horror. They were just trying to find like cheap exploitation that they could release and slap a funky ass cover on it and just try to make a buck. So they do cartoons, but obviously, I mean, something that makes a lot of money are horror and sci-fi films, and it's just funny that their logo is this rainbow. But I love it. I love the cheesy covers. I mean, it's so dated and so old. It's the company, came out, I believe in 88, but maybe even earlier. Yeah, see, I'm talking out my ass. This says 86. But I mean, the aesthetic of this cheap ass tape with this logo, it feels so old and so dated. Like this was dated when it came out, right? But I love that about these tapes, especially the original rainbow line of these Good Time tapes. This is another one that I like quite a bit. Creature of the Walking Dead. That's a great one. I think this is a Mexican horror film that was dubbed into English. But, obviously I got to highlight one tape. And kind of briefly talk on that movie. And, I have more Good Time tapes around here. Those are kind of my OG release ones. And I got to pick my favorite one. I love all of them. And I got to pick my favorite one. And not only is it's both my favorite cover of a Good Times tape that I have, but I think I'm pretty damn sure that it's also my favorite movie. And part of it is nostalgic reasons, because it perfectly ties itself back to this Fantastic Dinosaurs of the Movies trailer compilation tape that was one of the first tapes I ever had when I was very, very young. Got me into stuff like this. There's a trailer. There's a bunch of trailers, but there's a trailer for the sci-fi monster movie classic, The Giant Claw. For those of you who know, you know, but this is just one of those movies, one of those 50s monster movies that almost comes off like a spoof. It's almost too weird to exist genuinely, to exist non-ironically. It's got a bit of Troll 2 vibes to it. It's got a little bit of Ed Wood Plan 9 from Outer Space to it. It's a truly bizarre movie, and it doesn't do me any good to really talk about the plot all that much, because that's not even really, like, the overarching plot is not what's baffling and interesting, sorry, slurring my words a little bit, interesting about this movie. Because on the surface, it's just a giant monster movie. It's a giant flying monster who attacks an American city. And, scientists and some kind of quasi-military people have to find a way to stop him. And that's usually kind of par for the course for most 50s sci-fi monster movies. And it doesn't get much deeper than that. It's just that, There's not much else to it. This movie has so many bizarre little twists and turns. And mostly when I think of this movie, what I want to know is just what happened. What were they thinking? Because this wasn't Ed Wood. This wasn't Claudio Fragasso coming over from Italy to make a movie. These were pretty well established filmmakers, especially within the genre, too. The producer of the movie, one second, I can't remember his name right now. Oh my gosh, and I'm looking for another tape, too. But for some reason, I don't see. It must be around here somewhere. Anyhow, the producer of this movie, I see a lot of I see the explanation for the giant claw being thrown out there, and it just doesn't actually answer what the hell happened or what anybody was thinking. What most people say is, well, the producer of this film had two really successful science fiction films before it, and wanted to just kind of keep the train rolling. He did it came from beneath the sea, and it did really well. And then they did Earth versus the Flying Saucers, and it did really well. So, they just wanted to do another one of these. No, let's go through it. It came from beneath the sea. It's a movie about a giant octopus that attacks San Francisco, and the military has to figure out a way to stop it. And they got special effects from Ray Harryhausen. Perfect. Did really well. Earth versus the Flying Saucers. Well, it's about some alien invaders that come down in some spaceships, and they attack Washington, D.C. And Ray Harryhausen did the special effects. Did very well. Okay. The Giant Claw is about a giant monster condor with a mohawk. And he's an alien. He flew through outer space to get here. And it's actually pretty amazing that he even ended up here, because this specific giant alien space condor with a mohawk only flies in ever expanding concentric circles going out from a point. It only flies in that pattern. And it can't be seen by radar. Also, this space condor alien with a mohawk who flies only in concentric increasing circles, who can't be seen by radar, came here to basically just lay its eggs for no other reason. It just wanted a place to lay its eggs. And also this giant monster condor with a mohawk that's an alien that flew through space, flying only in ever-increasing concentric circles because it's pregnant and it can't be seen by radar. It also has an antimatter shield, and that's what makes it impervious to Earth's weapons. And that's the main focus of the movie, and it's we're gonna follow some mathematician, scientist girl, and this guy who's like kind of in the Air Force, but not in the Air Force. He's like just an engineer. But we want to play most of this movie more like a mystery. We don't really want to like show the monster for the first half, and like we don't want to know what's going on. We kind of want to play it like a detective movie, actually. And then, surprise, surprise, Ray Harryhausen doesn't want to do the special effects for this movie. So, we'll just hire some random Mexican special effects company that no one's ever heard of to replace Ray Harryhausen. The only reason that either of our two previous movies were profitable at all. The movie is just so bizarre. And the funny thing about it too is that it's like it's a competently made 50s sci-fi movie. And I think that the acting by Anthony Morrow? No, I always want to say Anthony Morrow. Jeff Morrow. Anthony Morrow is an ex-NBA player. Jeff Morrow is pretty good.
Well, I was kind of expecting that too.
I always laugh a little bit when I watch 50s movies in general, just because the only humans on planet Earth were frumpy, bloated 50-year-old white men in jumpsuits, you know, who are like, they're like scientists and they're pilots and they're the president of the United States. They all just look like, you know, they had steak for breakfast and washed it down with a beer and smoked an entire pack of cigarettes, and yesterday was their 53rd birthday.
For the government, but man, he kind of makes his own rules.
So does a 3-year-old child until his mother spanks him.
Mother, dear mother, I'm ready if you are.
I must have left a switch on.
That always cracks me up. But, I mean, for what it is, it's pretty well done. And Jeff Morrow's acting is good. I mean, the weird thing is, like, nobody a part of this project, no one there's a hack. It's, like, fairly well put together. It's just so bizarre and mismanaged that... Yeah, I don't even know what else to say about it. You know, it's brief. It's like 70 minutes. It's great. It's an easy one to watch. And, you know, there is quite a bit of monster action once, you know, we get to that halfway point. Yeah, the ending is a little underwhelming, but... You know, overall, I like the giant claw quite a bit, and part of it is the fact that it's so bizarre. It's both kind of a typical 50s sci-fi movie, and at the same time, totally unlike anything else that came out at the time. It truly is a little bit of an enigma. And the special effects are just, like, beautiful. In that they're so bad. And the prop itself is almost kind of baffling and strange, you know? It's this big, stiff, hunky piece of shit that, like, can't, like, it like barely can flap its wings. It's just so stiff. It's like a potato just whoop across the screen, except for some reason its nostrils are really articulate. Like, it can flare its nostrils really well. It's such a goofy looking monster, and at the same time kind of scary. But like the sound design for the monster is pretty good. It's just a bizarre one, man. And it just ends up kind of being one of my favorite 50s American giant monster movies. 'Cause like I said, it's super entertaining. I love me some 50s sci-fi. And this one is super entertaining for how laughably bizarre it is, and it has some decent action towards the end, and it kind of has all those like great hallmarks that you usually get from a 50s movie, you know. The funny thing, well, I guess it's not funny, like this isn't funny at all, but fuck it. It's interesting. Like, an interesting thing about the 50s is like, yeah, we were pretty insensitive and racist and misogynistic, but I guess at least we were intolerant to everybody. You know, you're pretty used to seeing certain stuff in 50s movies, especially like the misogyny. But the funny thing about the giant claw is like they're even oddly racist or prejudiced or whatever, insensitive towards French Canadians in this movie, which just, it feels so odd. You know, the characters, they like kind of crash land in Canada. I think it's like Montreal area, and you know, of course they meet some, you know, French guy who lives out in the mountains. You know, hey, listen here, Pierre. You know, and this like Pierre guy is like, You know, just so stereotypical. Couldn't be any more stereotypical than if he was like drinking maple syrup out of a flask.
Jack, I make him myself. Fine for the snake bite.
Oh, sacre bleu, where me mama?
It was the carne. I saw
Sacre bleu!
the face of the wolf and the body of the woman with wings.
It's so funny, dude. It's just, it's, the choices in this movie are just bizarre, dude. Yeah. What else is there to say about the giant claw? Just off the cuff. Not much. Highly recommended. Highly recommended that you watch the giant claw. It's free on YouTube right now. No excuse not to watch it. And going back to Good Times, I would like to advocate for GoodTimes Home video being in your VHS collection. And if you don't want to get more of these, you know, kind of oddity tapes that nobody else really considers to be rare, so why would you put them on your shelf? You know, certainly not because they look cool. But you know, I still recommend that you get this. If you're gonna have one Good Times tape, you ought to get the giant claw. It's a beautiful cover. It's so funny. Such a bullshit, batshit movie like this should be on a bargain bin, most people throw it away type of VHS distribution company. So that's it. That's it for me today, you know. I slopped up a couple beers and decided to do a video. Follow 7th Street Productions on Facebook, Instagram. Visit 7thstreetfilms.com. Definitely check out all of our feature films. They're available on Tubi, Amazon, Apple TV. Check out titles like Conjuring the Cult, Insidious Inferno, Revenge of the Boogeyman. The list goes on. Those are all available online. A lot of places it's free to watch with ads. So definitely watch those movies. Support indie horror. If you like these videos, comment below. You know, give me some suggestions. Like I said, I'm just kind of going through my tape collection and kind of highlighting some of the specific tapes that I like most out of my collection. And then also, like today, just kind of talking about, you know, GoodTimes Home video. So, yeah, until next time.